My non-binary daughter is pregnant. She expects me to raise the baby whilst she lives in the woods with her weirdo hippie friends. My daughter came to me at 16 and said she was non-binary, but only sometimes. Like, some days she would feel more male than female, and some days she would feel like neither. She wanted me to ask her every day what day it was and then refer to her as that pronoun of the day. I told her that wasn't going to fly. Growing up, I spent a lot of time on LiveJournal during the old Bun Self and Zen Self Zer Self days. People who think this is new to this generation are fooling themselves. I told her that I would call her the pronoun she wanted, and do my best to remember it day to day, but she was going to have to tell me what she wanted for that day. I wasn't going to play a daily guessing game. This went on for about a week or two until she finally seemed to grow tired or bored and just said I could call her, though she still identifies as non-binary. Fine. At least when it was going on she wanted she, he, or they. I'm sorry, but I couldn't have done fox self or fox them with a straight face. So that's the pronoun story, and looking back where I think things started to go off the handle. Here's my real question. My daughter is now 18, pregnant, and seems to have lost her goddamned mind. Or I'm an a-hole. You choose. This year has been a struggle. She wanted to take a break year before she goes to community college, but can't keep a job. Apparently, retail situations are too phobic against her non-binary state. My child looks/acts/dresses exactly as a young adult female BTW. When I ask how people are being phobic against her, she gets as prickly as a cactus, so I really don't know the details. She's been through 4 or 5 jobs this year, quit all of them. She won't consider call centers that aren't face-to-face because she doesn't like to talk on phones, and is apparently looking for a remote job without any luck. She's been unemployed since Thanksgiving. She quit her last job on Black Friday, in fact, and I was on the verge of laying down the law, telling her she either needs to go to school this upcoming semester full-time or get a full-time job or move out with her friends. But now she's come to me and she's 5 months pregnant. She's very angry at me, says it's my fault because I didn't put her on puberty-blocking hormones when she came to me 2 years ago. She believes I am in fact trying to feminize her by getting her birth control. The pill. She's been throwing her prescription away. This is where I might be the a-hole. I called her a little idiot. We don't use that sort of language in my house, and I never call people names, especially my own child, but at that moment I could just see red. The hormone thing is a non-issue IMO because this is the first time I ever heard of her wanting hormones. What was I supposed to do? Go back in time? As for the birth control, it's also the first time I'm hearing anything about this. There are non-pill options that don't have estrogen. If that was her want, all she had to do was ask and I would have driven her to the doctor myself. Or she could have taken the car she has and done it. She has her own medical card, even. Though to be fair, I don't know how she would have managed the copay without a job. I know for a fact her old high school gave out free condoms like candy because her friends were always giggling over flavored sample packs and even blew a few of them up like balloons and left them around the house one time. She had all the birth control she could ever want and used none of it. It gets worse. We're way past the date of abortion. Again, I would have helped her if this had been her wish. We live in an abortion-protected state and can afford it. She's known she was pregnant since about 2 months and has come to think of her baby like a sibling. She expects me to raise it like it was mine. That this is my duty, in fact, because she says it is my refusal to accept her non-binary state that led to her being pregnant. So she was going to get a brother or sister, and I was going to have another child. You can say my language grew sterner to versions of get your head out of your butt and congratulations, mommy, you have some hard decisions to make, and I said I would absolutely not raise her baby for her. She also refused to say who the father was. Now that I've cooled down, I'm really hoping she has a secret boyfriend. She does have some friends who were born male, but now also don't identify that way. We didn't even get there as I lost my mind when she said she thinks of her own baby as a sibling and wants me to raise it like my own child. She's locked herself in her room loudly wailing. I feel like crap warmed over. She's been in there for 12 hours, and as she has an attached bathroom, probably won't be coming out until she gets hungry. Considering it's been half a day, I think she has snacks stored. I also don't know where to go from here. Being pregnant sucks and messes with your head, so I'd like to blame that and the fears she must be feeling, but I have the bad feeling I either raised a spoiled brat or someone with an emerging personality disorder. So I need to know from people who aren't emotionally involved, and maybe some people who are more in tune with this whole non-binary thing than I am. What do I do to help while also making her responsible for her own child? How can I help my daughter accept she must do basically the most feminine thing you can do, give birth and possibly breastfeed, while being sensitive that she's non-binary? Am I just a big a-hole here? Typing all this out, it feels like my daughter is lost in crazy town. I'm still not raising her baby, but at what point do I drag a legal adult to the hospital? Edit. You might disagree with my choices or wording, but this is certainly not bait. Edit 2. It's the middle of the night, and she has decided to pack some of her clothes and stay with one of her friends. One who I suspect is the baby daddy. Before she left, she told me that she already called the police and let them know that she was leaving of her own free will and was not in danger. Like I was going to report an 18-year-old adult as a runaway or something? It was insulting. I told her she needs to work out details if she wants to adopt with the father, and she was welcome back home when she had a plan in place. It was short because I heard her on the way out. I think she just meant to leave without saying anything. Comment 1. NTA. I hate to say this, but I sincerely hope Opie's daughter chooses to give up this baby for adoption, because she's a confused hot-ass mess. I don't blame Opie for not wanting to step on the crazy train and raise this baby. Comment 2. Let's be honest, if Opie says yes to raising this child as her own, it will be the first of several. Daughter won't take BC, so she will continue to have unprotected sex and get pregnant. She decided a couple years ago that she's NB, expected her mother to understand that, and know everything about it, and is now rewriting history to blame her mom for her now being pregnant. My head is swimming, and she's not my daughter. There will be more babies. Comment 3. NB here Opie. You are so NTA. I feel sympathy for your kid because they sound like they are so confused, maybe have body dysphoria and are now facing a life-altering situation with no way out. They must feel so trapped. So they turn on you. It's easier for them to yell at and blame you instead of accepting responsibility. They are looking for a way out. We all keep changing and growing, and your kid is so young they seem to not know who they are yet, and now they have to face looking after a baby when they know deep down they can't even really take care of themselves. But my God, the thing they did that was really stupid was chucking BC away. That is actually wild. Your kid needs to learn the difference between gender-enforced stereotypes and actual biology. With biology, it unfortunately doesn't matter what gender you are, the biology doesn't care, it still works the same. They need to learn that and differentiate. Like I said, NTOP. What a shit situation. I hope it gets better. I really do. Comment 4. NTA, your child is in fact a little idiot, with behavior that would be an absolute nightmare had you not been their parent. Also, birth control isn't a form of feminization. It's a form of responsibility when you're born in a body with a uterus and want to have sex that can result in pregnancy. Opie's response. Ugh, I wish I had those words when she hit me with that one. I sort of sputtered for a few minutes. Comment 5. Oh man, this is a can of worms within itself. I wish I had better advice, but I feel for you and the position you are stuck in. The only thing I can think of is, referring to breastfeeding as chest feeding, might make your NB daughter accept it more. But there's a whole other level of things you need to get through first. First and foremost, therapy, ASAP for your kid. Because she needs to get her head sorted out. Assuming you will just take this kid and raise it for her is problematic to say the least. And she's got a deadline coming obviously, so therapy ASAP. Also appointment for pregnancy checkups ASAP. Has she had any? An unmonitored pregnancy can lead to complications. You might also be able to get her a social worker to go through pregnancy checkups, birthing extra. Your kid needs a big sit-down conversation about accountability for your own actions. And about how she might feel like part of your actions lead to this. There was also many choices she could have made to prevent this, that she chose not to. And at the end of the day, it was her choices that led to this, not you. OP's response. Thanks for this tip. I've written it down. The reason I mentioned she was NB because using breast instead of chest is the exact type of thing to send her into a pissy fit when she's in the wrong mood. I know this may sound like a little thing, but she's always been, dramatic. Because it's the internet and things are anonymous, I'll admit that I am absolutely dreading pregnancy and afterbirth mood swings. Especially since it will all involve very womanly things in every intimate way. On top of the sheer stress of a newborn? Yes, I'm not looking forward to it at all and am already preparing to endure the storms. Our conversation wasn't productive, it was an argument, and she's still not out of her room, but I don't think she has had any prenatal care. That will change if I have anything to do with it. Thanks again. OP commented with some of her concerns. Yes. My worry and regret have so many places to go, and a big part of it is for the baby. This has been a bad day. Sad face. Responding to a comment regarding her child's entitled attitude. Well, believe you me, I have been kicking myself up and down on top of everything else. I don't know how she got to this point, but she's there now. I wish I did have that time travel machine she clearly expects me to have. She also clarified her overall views on the matter. I'm on the fence. If she acted at all like she didn't have a gender, I believe that's what NB is, then I could take it more seriously. But she dresses as a woman. She puts on makeup, wears dresses during the summer, enjoys feminine things. We watch horse videos on YouTube and squeal over the new foal videos. She's never been a tomboy even. But I was like, okay, this isn't hurting her. I'll let her have this and express herself. Maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't. And after the first few weeks, she even dropped changing pronouns every day. Her mentioning being NB faded and then started up hard again when high school ended and she started working retail. I tried to be understanding. Retail is hell and I'd personally only work it again if I was at my last resort. But recently it does seem to be an excuse not to work. And now she has a baby on the way. This may not be the place for it, but I'm just worried she's regressing to a more childlike state. I don't know if she's struggling with being NB or if she's using NB as an excuse to shield herself from the world. Ugh. I guess the internet won't know, but I'm just flat out worried. Update 1. This is an update to this post. Long story short, my 18-year-old NB daughter wanted me to raise her baby, and she told me she thinks the baby as her sibling. We had a blowout. She locked herself in her room for most of a day, and then took off with her friends/her lover. So this happened a few days ago, but I didn't update because I needed to get my head around it. It still doesn't make sense. Daughter finally unblocked me. She and the person who got her pregnant wanted to talk to me at a public place. We chose IHOP. Although I suspected I knew who her lover was, I was disappointed to find out because they have been a part of my daughter's friend group since high school and was the only one I ever had a problem with and kicked out of my house. They are trans now, but 2 years ago the friend group was watching a movie in the living room, and every time I'd pass by, he was a he then, would lock eyes with me and make really obnoxious, loud, orgasm sounds like that scene in Harry Met Sally. I told him to knock it off and grew sterner when he did it again. Then when I was in the kitchen, he somehow snuck up behind me and was miming jack-off movements with his hand. I turned around and caught him at it. He was still fully clothed, but it was startling and freaky. I kicked him out. So now I'll just call them sperm donor because that's what they are. I'm still calling my daughter, and she because I still haven't been told not to buy her otherwise. So get off my case on that. Anyway, the IHOP meeting was a shit show. Sperm donor sat with my daughter and went on the attack. Sperm donor's points were: I was poisoning my daughter by making her take birth control. I only helped her get the prescription, and would have done everything I could if I knew she didn't want to take the pill. There are other methods. It will take years to fix my daughter after all I did. Not giving her hormones even though I had no idea that was what she wanted. She dropped even wanting to change her pronouns after a few weeks. Abortion is a sin and I am a monster for suggesting it. It's past the date anyway. I am further abusing her by not taking care of the baby while she fixes herself. I guess they meant it as a temp situation, which was also new to me. So apparently even though I'm an abusive monster, a bad mother, and so on, I'm even worse for not taking in their baby. At least no one suggested that I raise it like my daughter's sister anymore. That might have been my daughter's thought on it. S-Donor did most of the talking while my daughter just sat and glared at me, nodding along. It was kind of a whirlwind. S-Donor pounded the table a few times, and even the waiter knew not to bother us after drinks, lol. I'm surprised we weren't asked to leave. There was a lot said, mostly by the S-Donor who really seemed to be steering the ship. I asked why S-Donor couldn't take care of the baby and S-Donor said their parents were even worse than me. I guess my daughter and S-Donor taking care of the child they created is out of the question. I told them that I would not be raising their baby for them and that adoption is the best bet. They said that if I don't agree to raise it, they'll make sure I'll never see the baby ever. I won't raise their child for them. So that's that, I guess. I feel so many flavors of worried and angry, and then worried all over again. I've been around the block and it's never a great sign when the person you're with makes an enemy of your family. That's what S-Donor has done by painting me as an abuser and failed mother who also won't take in their baby. Sounds like sperm donor has cut themselves off from their own family too. So I'm worried my daughter is in a very controlling relationship with someone who convinced her to stop birth control because they think hormones are too feminizing somehow, and that she needs to be fixed. But they still want me to raise their baby. I'm angry that my daughter can just hear this crap and nod along like, yeah, that makes total sense. She is not stupid. I think she's love-blinded. I'm sad and worried for the baby. A couple commenters suggested I wanted nothing to do with the baby because I wouldn't agree to raise it as my own. No, in a perfect world, I would want a normal grandmotherly relationship. Or at least know that the child is safe and has been adopted into a loving family. I don't care what my daughter does with her gender, or her body as long as she doesn't hurt herself. I want her to be in a happy relationship with someone who values her for who she is. S-Donor kept using the word fix, which I see as another terrible sign. It's bad all around. My house is empty. It feels like my adult daughter has run off to join up with some weird church/cult thing who tells her that up is down. That not using birth control and not getting an abortion and then expecting others to take care of the child is all a-okay. Oh, and that she's a problem and needs to be fixed. I texted her and said I would be there for her, but S-Donor was still not welcome in the house. I think I'm blocked again. She's a legal adult. I'm not sure what else I can do at this point. In my low points, part of me thinks maybe I should agree to take the baby and then immediately make sure it's adopted into a loving home. But I get the feeling that S-Donor won't make that easy, and right now my daughter does what he says. Also, I'm not sure if that plan is even possible. It sounds Hollywood. I have an appointment to speak with a counselor, but the soonest I could get is April. Some of my friends think I should take the baby in either to get them away from the parents, or because they think it's my duty, or both. The only silver lining in this was that they both seemed sober. I don't think there's drugs involved. Am I reading this wrong? Am I the asshole here? Commenters agreed that S-Donor's comments made no sense, and that OP's child was probably stuck in an abusive relationship. Comment 1. For your safety, I would change the locks and put up camera. S-Donor seems unhinged. I'm a firm believer in better safe than sorry. Comment 2. This baby will be used as a pawn in his never-ending psychodrama. If they do not and cannot raise their baby, the best solution is adoption. Otherwise, the father will make your life a living hell. NTA. OP's response. I couldn't figure out a polite way of saying this, but yes. That is my suspicion if I take in their baby. S-Donor implied it would be temporary while earlier my daughter said it would be permanent. I think sperm donor will refuse to sign over paperwork when the time comes or try to leverage it in some way. Comment 3. NTA. Also, it sounds like your daughter is in an abusive relationship with this person. Sorry your daughter has been brainwashed by this crazy person. I would definitely contact this sperm donor's family, and if they seem sane, warn them about how crazy both have spoke to you. OP's response. That is my fear, and not a bad idea to contact sperm donor's parents. This has all happened so far. I feel like I'm in shock and I'm very worried. Comment 4. Pretty wild that a trans person is saying abortion is a sin. None of this is anything like what you're going to hear from any healthy LGBT community, who are quite careful to make sure not to support people in delusional or antisocial behavior. Definitely get therapy. Sounds like your kid has some serious mental health problems if they're being influenced by whatever wackos put these ideas into their head. You're going to need support in coping with this madness. NTA by a country mile. You are in no way abusing your kid by refusing to take responsibility for their bad choices. OP's response. Thank you, and yes, I don't want to minimize my daughter's role in it, but the hard anti-abortion thing surprised me too. A lot of what they said contradicted itself. It felt like I was sitting across from two people who were in their own wacko bubble. I know it's not a LGBT thing. I wish someone from their community would knock some sense into them, if it's even possible at this point. OP left an update in a comment. I logged in and received a large amount of requests for an update. Unfortunately, I do not have one. I have not seen or heard from my daughter since the last meeting, and I believe she has changed her phone number. Our community isn't a large one, and I have heard through the grapevine she is staying with a sperm donor in one of the homeless camps out in the woods. As this is a haven for drugs and sex trafficking, this is a further concern. From what I've heard, she is pregnant. Myself and a few friends and family members have driven through the camp area a few times on the lookout for her, but it's very large and there aren't exactly marked roads. Also, recently other people have been shot at while walking their dogs around there, or riding ATVs, so every time we go, it's a risk. So that's it. I'm stuck hoping she's safe and under some kind of shelter. There are a lot of plywood houses and broken down RVs out there, and waiting to hear news when she has the baby. Yes, CPS and the local police are aware of my concerns. I'm worried the child will be born addicted to drugs because I don't know anyone who doesn't live out there who isn't a meth head. Thanks for your concern, all. I'm unsure what I'll do when the baby is born. I might have to take in the baby after all just to make sure it doesn't live in that camp, and it may make me the asshole. But I am not looking forward to the hard work and drama that will come with it. Update 2. I posted another update in the comments a while back. It's on my account. Basically, my pregnant daughter shut me out of her life completely, and rumor had it she was living in a homeless camp with her weirdo lover out in the woods. It's a huge place and me and friends searched a few times, but weren't able to find her. It's also dangerous because there aren't laws out there, and the homeless shoot at ATV riders and hikers and send dogs after people who come too close to what they consider their territory. To be clear, I don't think my daughter was part of that group. The camp is huge and full of meth addicts, sex traffickers, and drug labs. I did contact S. Donor's parents, and they have all but disowned him after very much the same disturbing behavior I outlined earlier, only geared toward their younger siblings. So that sucks. Back to the new news. All this shook out a couple weeks ago, but I hesitated to post because of my own emotions and the fact I know Reddit will be all over my ass for the deep anger, shame, and disappointment I have for my daughter. I came home from grocery shopping to find a strange pregnant woman at my door. That woman used to be my daughter, but had changed so much she was like a stranger. She chatters constantly so you can't get a word in. She has several small face tattoos and, forgive me for saying this, looks like she has aged 20 years. She had been living rough. She was angry. I locked her out. I changed the locks after she left, and basically expected to move back into her old room with no problem, like it was just another day from back in the winter when she lived here. Of course I wasn't going to turn her away, so I guess in a way she was right. She was living in the homeless camp with the S. Donor, and I insisted she take a shower because it looked like she hadn't since leaving. She also stank bad. She had no shame about blocking my number or what she put me through by disappearing. All she wanted to talk about was the grand fate that she and Sperm Donor are building. That they're building a community of new people, and she went on and on and on without mentioning the baby once. I don't know how anyone can stand them, but S. Donor has multiple partners and my daughter is one of them and is perfectly happy being his brood mare. The brood mare is my verbiage. Hers is much more royal. Frankly, based on what she overshared, S. Donor seems like a complete fiend. Finally I broke in and asked, and she said she had been to the doctor regularly. That was a lie, found out later, and all is well with the baby. At this point I knew she had to be on drugs. If she was awake, she was talking, and none of what she said had an end or a point. Also, a lot was from Crazy Town. What I got from her was that, again, she and several other ladies and men, somehow, were to carry the next generation of new people. Yes, the men. Yes, biological men. S. Donor was sort of the middle of the wheel with the spokes, was how she described it. I've met him before and I'm surprised he was able to get one girlfriend, much less whatever grouping is going on now. Anyway, sometimes she said she wanted to keep the baby, though she wouldn't tell me a plan to take care of and house it. I think she expected to stay with me, and sometimes she wanted to adopt it out, but not for the good of the baby but to spread the new people. This part is going to upset the internet, but the new people are apparently without gender expectations, and that was why she didn't know the baby's gender yet. Oh yeah, and also some of the wheel, her group, were empathic and they could communicate their feelings through the other world. As a house guest, she was the absolute worst. It was like she had gone feral out in the camp and clean up after herself to the point where she mostly did not even flush the toilet after using it. She ate everything, which was to expected, but never cleaned up after herself and kept asking is too mild of a word. She demanded for me to take her out to restaurants. I did a couple of times because I missed her and was trying to make a connection, but then once afterward took her to the store to get baby supplies, and she was weirdly detached. Sort of picked up the first thing she saw on the shelf, and all the while it was yak about her true family of new people and their grand fate. Anyway, I finally got out of her that she expected the baby in mid-July, which put her outside the time frame she originally gave me. I had it on my calendar. I was obsessed with the possible due date because I didn't know if she was find a baby on my doorstep or what. And yes, she was under the care of a doctor. Both lies. Getting her to focus on one subject was impossible. She would only stop talking long enough to take a breath and only listen long enough to you to stop for your own before she'd launch into a new thing, usually around sperm donor, who she loved but was nowhere in sight and was chilling back at the camp with the rest of his breeding stock, or whatever. Basically, I was waiting for her to come down off whatever substance she was on, when she went into full-blown labor. It was a complete shit show. She was having pains but her water hadn't broken yet. At the hospital it came out that she had not been to the doctor once for the baby. There are programs in our state that cover pregnancies, so that put her at high risk, so she was admitted immediately. That's when the switch flipped, and she became hateful against nurses and doctors. She said the worst things and they were absolute saints in return. She also had, delusions of grandeur, and told them she was their queen and accused them of trying to punish her. It was so wild. I can't even describe the monster she became. So hateful. Racist, vicious, and the worst things you can say to people, she said them. She wasn't in hard labor yet, so it wasn't entirely the pain. I pulled one nurse aside and told her where she had been living and that I suspected drugs, though I hadn't caught her using yet. They were so professional and gave her painkillers that helped her mood. Not gonna lie, they doped her up because she was acting wild. Imagine my surprise when her blood work came out clean. I wasn't there for the birth because she didn't want me in the room with her, and heaven help me, I was a little relieved because I was ashamed of her behavior. But I did talk to a social worker on staff to let them know everything I did. The lady was very nice but couldn't speculate officially on my daughter's mental state. I said she had to be bipolar or manic or something because her behavior was not normal. But she asked if she had threatened to kill herself or harm the baby, and she hadn't. They can't step in until there's a threat. Miraculously, the child was born at a good weight and healthy, and not addicted. I don't want to give too much info on them because the internet is forever, and one day they may search for their own past. My daughter lucked out big time and had a normal delivery as things went. She didn't give donor's name out as the father, though I did to the social worker. They can't be put on the birth certificate, on my word. She up and left her baby that evening without officially checking out, without saying goodbye to me or her newborn. Because the hospital is a safe surrender point, she won't be charged for abandonment. CPS asked if I wanted to take the child, and though it tore me up, I said no. There are a lot of reasons for why. A big one is I don't want to be held hostage to my daughter's whims, and especially donor. I don't want to be on the hook for more children which are likely coming. Also, look at my daughter. I did my best, and she still turned out this way. Maybe I shouldn't try again. I know getting a new family is almost the best thing that could have happened for the baby, even with problems with the foster system. It has to be better than the camp. But I feel like dog's hit about it even now. I also suspect they'll have a sibling soon, as my daughter can arrange it. I know my daughter is not well. I know she's in a cult and probably in danger, and also probably an abuser herself, based on the stories she casually dropped about other members. She is also a selfish liar, and it is luck or the grace of God or what have you that her baby was born healthy. She is rolling the dice on her life and the life of her future children. She's sick and under a fiend's control and now thinks she has magic thought powers, but she has some responsibility in this, too. All the rest of the transgender stuff with her lover, and if she is NB or not from the past, doesn't matter. She's an adult and is making some bad choices. It's hard for me to type out, but the way she treated the hospital staff was so cruel. Seriously, I had to use a thesaurus to describe it because I can't even describe fully how bad it was. It showed me that whatever else, she thinks other people are below her. It's more than the mania. I'm just there to serve her, whenever she sees fit. She knew she would be giving birth soon, so she came home and expected me to take care of her. I did, of course, because she was 9 months pregnant. And the second she didn't have any more need of me, or the baby she had just given birth to, it was easy to take off again. I listened to her for days, and she expressed no feelings of hope for the baby other than a vehicle to spread their movement. No worry about their future life, and no more comments on me raising them as a sibling. She made the choice to leave and go back to sperm donor's harem or wheel, or whatever. Sick or not, I'm ashamed to have raised someone with these kinds of values. Mentally ill people aren't bad people, but she has gone beyond merely bad choices. I haven't totally written her off, and she may come back to sanity. But since all indications are that I'm blocked again, I'm going to think long and hard about boundaries and possibly moving. I'm worried about one day finding a bunch of culty weirdos on my porch. So that's it. I don't know what to do. It's not like I have the resources to pay someone to deprogram my daughter, and that sounds very Hollywood. I need a realistic goal. It's more than just a cult. She needs a checkup from the neck up, and I don't have the legal standing to do anything. At least the baby is safe. That's the one bright spot. Thoughts are welcome, and forgive me, any realistic suggestions, or just tell me if I'm way off base and I'm the asshole here. This has been a hell of a year, and such a spiral. A year ago I had a somewhat of a slacker teenager under my roof. Now all of this. Update 3. To catch you up, my daughter showed up at my doorstep looking like a stranger, went into labor, gave birth, and then abandoned her baby at the hospital. I refused to take the baby because I couldn't bear the thought of being manipulated by her and her creepy partner, S-donor. The baby went into the foster system, and my daughter disappeared back into the homeless camp. After that ordeal, I felt like I was living in a haze. My house felt empty and eerily quiet without my daughter's constant chatter, no matter how nonsensical it had been. I went about my daily routine, but everything seemed off-kilter. I started seeing a counselor to help process everything, but even they were at a loss for words at times. About a month passed with no word from my daughter. I had almost started to hope she'd gone back to the camp for good when I got a call from an unknown number. It was a social worker informing me that my daughter had been arrested during a raid on the homeless camp. Apparently, the police had been tipped off about drug trafficking and other illegal activities happening there. My daughter was picked up, but thankfully, she wasn't involved in the drug scene. She was, however, charged with trespassing and resisting arrest. I went to visit her in jail. Seeing her through that glass partition was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. She looked even more worn down than before, but there was a strange clarity in her eyes. I could tell the reality of her situation was starting to sink in. We talked for a long time, and for the first time in months, she seemed genuinely lucid. She apologized for everything, from the wild accusations to abandoning her baby. She admitted that she had been under the influence of S-donor and his manipulative tactics. She told me she wanted to get out, to start over, but she didn't know how. She was scared of S-donor and what he might do if she tried to leave for good. It was a heartbreaking conversation, but it gave me a glimmer of hope. I promised her I would help her in any way I could. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I hired a lawyer, and we worked on getting her released on bail. She was placed in a court-mandated rehab program to address her substance abuse issues, even though she had tested clean. The counselor said that her erratic behavior and her association with drug users necessitated it. I visited her regularly, and she slowly started to open up more about her time in the camp. She confessed that she had indeed been using drugs, which she had lied about during the pregnancy, and that S-donor had coerced her into it. He had convinced her that the drugs would help her connect with the other world, and the new people. It was a lot to take in, but it made sense considering how detached from reality she had seemed. While she was in rehab, I started working on getting her baby back. It wasn't easy, but with the help of social services and a lot of paperwork, I was eventually able to gain custody. The day I brought the baby home was overwhelming. I hadn't taken care of a newborn in decades, and everything felt new and terrifying. But as soon as I held that little bundle, I knew I had made the right decision. My daughter completed her rehab program and moved back home. She was a different person, still my daughter, but more grounded, more aware of her actions and their consequences. We had a lot of long, hard talks about her future, her responsibilities, and what it meant to be a parent. She was scared, but determined to do right by her child. However, life is rarely straightforward. One evening, as we were settling into our new routine, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find S-donor standing there, looking as smug and self-assured as ever. He demanded to see my daughter and their baby. I refused and told him to leave, but he wouldn't budge. He started shouting, causing a scene, and my daughter came running to the door. She looked terrified but stood her ground. She told him she was done with him, that she wanted nothing more to do with his new people, and that she was going to raise her child away from his influence. Donor didn't take it well. He started yelling about how she was betraying him, how she'd never be free of him. I called the police, and they arrived just as he was trying to force his way into the house. They arrested him for trespassing and harassment. After that incident, we decided it wasn't safe to stay in our home. I sold the house, and we moved to a different city where Donor wouldn't find us. It was a fresh start, but it was also a lot to handle. My daughter had to find a new job, and I had to find a new place for us to live. We eventually settled into a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and it was safe. My daughter started working part-time while taking online classes. I took on the role of primary caregiver for the baby, who was thriving and bringing so much joy into our lives. For a while, things seemed to be going well. My daughter was doing better, staying clean, and making progress in her studies. But there was always this underlying tension, this fear that Donor would somehow find us. My daughter struggled with anxiety and PTSD from her time in the camp and her relationship with Donor. We found a good therapist who specialized in trauma, and it helped, but it was a long road. Then, one day, I came home from running errands to find my daughter gone. There was a note on the kitchen table, written hastily. She said she couldn't handle it anymore, that she felt like she was suffocating and needed to find herself. She promised she would be back and that she loved us both, but she needed to do this on her own. I was devastated. I didn't know where she went or if she was safe. I reported her missing to the police, but since she was an adult and had left a note, there wasn't much they could do. I contacted her therapist, who assured me that this was probably a part of her process of healing and self-discovery, but it didn't make it any easier. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I focused on taking care of the baby, trying to keep life as normal as possible, but it was hard. I missed my daughter terribly and worried about her constantly. I couldn't help but check the news every day, fearing the worst. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my daughter. She sounded calm, more centered than I'd heard her in a long time. She apologized for leaving the way she did but said she needed to get away to clear her head. She had found a small community in a different state where she was living and working. She was in therapy and making strides in her recovery. She said she wanted to come back but needed a bit more time. She asked me to understand and to keep taking care of her child. It was a bittersweet moment. I was relieved to hear she was safe and doing better, but I was also heartbroken that she felt she couldn't come back yet. Update 4. So, after my daughter called and let me know she was safe but needed more time to heal, I tried to focus on the positives. She was alive, she was getting help, and she was working towards a better future. I held on to that hope like a lifeline. The baby, now a few months old, was thriving and brought so much joy into our lives. Every smile, every giggle was a reminder of the good amidst the chaos. A few months went by without any contact from my daughter. I'd send her periodic texts and voicemails, letting her know we were thinking of her and giving updates about the baby. There were no responses, but I hoped she was receiving them. It was a period of tense waiting, trying to balance my own life, the baby's needs, and the constant worry about my daughter. Then, just when I started to think she might never come back, I got another call from her. This time, she sounded more stable and grounded. She told me she had been attending therapy regularly and was working on herself. She said she missed us terribly and was planning to come back soon. She wanted to take things slow, but she was ready to be a part of our lives again. When she finally returned, it was a cautious reunion. She looked healthier, and there was a new sense of determination in her eyes. She apologized for everything, for leaving, for the worry she caused, and for all the hurtful things she had said. I could see she was genuinely remorseful and committed to making amends. We took it one step at a time. She moved back in with us, and we started rebuilding our relationship. It was a process filled with ups and downs, but we were making progress. She was great with the baby, and it was clear she wanted to be a good mother. However, the shadows of her past lingered, and I knew we still had a long road ahead. One evening, While we were having dinner, she opened up about her time in the homeless camp and her relationship with S. Donor. She revealed that leaving wasn't just about finding herself, it was also about escaping his influence. She had been scared for her safety and the babies, and she knew staying in that toxic environment wasn't an option. It broke my heart to hear what she had gone through, but I was also proud of her for finding the strength to leave. We talked for hours that night, laying everything out on the table. It felt like a major breakthrough, and I hoped it was a turning point. We started working together to create a stable environment for the baby. My daughter found a job at a local cafe, which helped her regain some independence and responsibility. She also continued with her online classes, determined to build a better future for herself and her child. But just as things were starting to look up, we were hit with another curveball. One evening, my daughter came home visibly shaken. She had run into S. Donor at a local store. He had approached her, trying to convince her to come back to him and the community. She managed to get away, but it rattled her deeply. We filed for a restraining order the next day, hoping it would keep him away. My daughter was scared, but she was also resolute. She wasn't going to let him drag her back into that life. I admired her strength, but I was also terrified of what S. Donor might do. For a while, things were tense. We were constantly looking over our shoulders, and my daughter was jumpy whenever she went out. But we managed. We leaned on each other and took comfort in our small but growing support network. A few weeks later, we received some unexpected news. The police had conducted another raid on the homeless camp and arrested several people, including S. Donor. He was facing multiple charges, ranging from drug trafficking to coercion. It was a huge relief, but it also brought up a lot of emotions for my daughter. She was relieved he was behind bars, but it also forced her to confront the trauma she had endured. With S. Donor out of the picture, my daughter started to relax a bit more. We continued to work on our relationship and focused on creating a positive environment for the baby. It wasn't always easy, there were still moments of tension and anxiety, but we were making progress. One day, we got a call from the social worker who had helped us during the baby's birth. She informed us that the baby's foster family was open to having regular visits. They had been following our situation and wanted to offer their support. It was an emotional conversation, and we decided to take them up on their offer. The first visit was overwhelming. Seeing the baby again brought a flood of emotions. The foster family was incredibly kind and understanding. They shared updates and photos, and we could see the baby was in a loving and nurturing environment. It was bittersweet, but it also gave us hope. My daughter was especially emotional, but she was also grateful for the opportunity to stay connected. As we continued to rebuild our lives, my daughter made the difficult decision to continue with the adoption process. She realized that while she loved her child deeply, she wasn't in a position to provide the stability and care needed. It was a heartbreaking decision, but it was also a mature and selfless one. The foster family agreed to an open adoption, allowing us to stay involved in the baby's life. We settled into a new routine. My daughter continued her therapy and worked hard at her job and classes. I focused on supporting her and staying connected with the baby. Life wasn't perfect, but it was moving in the right direction. Then, out of the blue, we got another call. This time, it was from a woman claiming to be S. Donor's mother. She had tracked us down and wanted to talk. I was wary, but we agreed to meet at a public place. When we met, she was visibly distraught. She apologized for her son's actions and explained that she had been estranged from him for years. She had only recently learned about his involvement with my daughter and the baby. She wanted to make amends and offered her support in any way she could. It was a lot to take in, but we appreciated her reaching out. She provided us with more information about S. Donor's past and his troubled history. It helped to understand a bit more about what my daughter had gone through, but it also brought up a lot of difficult emotions. As we navigated this new chapter, we continued to focus on healing and moving forward. My daughter and I grew closer, and she made significant strides in her recovery. She graduated from her online program and landed a better job, which gave her a sense of accomplishment and stability. We also remained in contact with the baby's adoptive family. They were incredibly supportive and encouraged regular visits. Seeing the baby grow and thrive was a source of joy and comfort for both of us.